Hi class, and welcome to topic 2 of ELM 210, Lesson Planning and Assessments. So week 1, we focused on the foundational pieces that help set up our lesson plan. Now that we've chosen our standard book and objective, we need to talk about how you will assess your students at the end or during the lesson. So this week's objectives are to examine different types of formative assessments, and also to learn about different questioning as an assessment strategy. So this assignment this week has two parts. Part 1 is an essay, and part 2 is a chart where you will create different levels of questions to ask your students about the text that you're teaching. So let's go ahead and take a look at the template here that I have that is required for this assignment. So this is just a template that I made for you just so that you had both parts in a single file. So please do use this, it is required. The first part is an essay, so please follow these directions here to write your essay. I do expect you to do some research, so please use resources either in our course materials this week. You can use your textbook as one of your sources. I do expect in-text citations and a references section down here at the bottom. You can create that here. Part 2, you will use this chart template for part 2. I do need you to include the title of your informational text as well as your standard that you chose in week 1, your reading informational standard. Without these two things filled in, I won't be able to tell if your questions are actually aligned and make sense for the lesson plan that you're planning. So please do include these two here. The next step, you need to create questions at different levels. So level 1 is recall. This is a very basic level. Can your students recall information directly from the text that they just read or heard? So you'll have 3 questions. There are 4 levels of questioning. You will create 3 questions for each level. Once you've created your questions based on your informational text and standard, now you'll fill in this middle column here. This middle column, you need to include possible student answers to these questions. What do you think your students will say when you ask them the question that you just created over here? Please put their answer here. You can also include any misunderstandings you think your kids might have about the question. So let's say you have a question that has a specific vocabulary word in it. Maybe one of the misunderstandings over here in this column then would be that you would have to pre-teach that vocabulary word before you ask them that question. This final column is where you need to explain the rationale of why your question meets a certain DOK level, depth of knowledge level. So each question that you create on the left here, you have to explain why you think that that question is actually that particular level. In this column, you need to explain or kind of give evidence or prove that yes, this question is an example of this level. And you need to have proof. You need to explain why it's that characteristic of that level, and you need to explain using a resource. So that means that you will have an in-text citation only in this column here. I don't expect a citation for every single question, but I do expect a citation, one for each level. So a rationale is where you explain why something is the way it is, and you give proof to that. So down here, it's not listed, but somewhere in here you would want to include a references title, and then you would want to list your reference entries that you're using here in the third column of your chart. Okay, so that means that you will have a references section here for part 1, and you will have a second references section down here for anything that you've used in your chart. Now, to be able to find some references and some sources for your assignment, I have attached here to my topic 2 announcement some charts, some depth of knowledge, some charts and question stems that you can use to help you get started on your own questions. The only thing I ask is that you don't use these generic questions. These are just examples. They are a jumping off point. You need to create questions that specifically relate to your informational text. So if one of your questions is, what is the main idea of this text? You need to make sure that that is tailored specifically to your text. So I would rather see a question that says, what is the main idea of the text volcanoes that we just read? So make sure all of your questions are very extremely specific to the text and the standard that you're using for your 3-day mini unit. These questions will be used to assess your students' understanding. So after day 1 of your mini unit, day 2 of your mini unit, day 3 of your mini unit, you'll be asking questions to check for student understanding. This is a formative type of assessment. You can ask these questions before the lesson starts, in the middle of the lesson, at the end of the lesson. These are all different questions that you can use as an assessment rather than a summative assessment, which might be at the end of a unit test or something like that. So you will use these questions and this chart. You will take the information from this chart for your benchmark assignment in week 6. You will also choose some of these questions here, the lower level questions most likely, for your week 5 assignment. And you also need these student responses for a later assignment. So please take your time with this assignment and keep it close by. Remember to use my feedback that I give you this week to revise anything that needs to be changed now before you reach week 5 and week 6. That way it'll be ready to go. Please let me know if you have any questions as always, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.